the Environment Regeneration Committee. This meeting is being held remotely and also in person and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcast available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act of 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with Council published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. Okay, I'll say welcome everyone. Now, we've got a late report we've been asked to consider. Are we okay with accepting that? Yeah, agreed. Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have any apologies, substitutions or declarations of interest?
Convener, we have apologies from Councillor Curley to be substituted by Councillor Daisley. We'll move to a roll call.
Okay.
Can the following councillors please indicate if they're present at the meeting? Councillor Brooks.
Chamber.
Councillor Cassidy.
Present. Chamber.
Councillor Fogarty.
In the chamber.
Councillor Crowder.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Daisley.
Present remotely.
Councillor Jackson.
In the chamber.
Councillor McCabe.
Present remotely.
Councillor McCormick.
In the chamber.
Councillor Nelson.
Can I be given a moment actually to go and just check what's happening with Councillor Nelson? I know he's in the building, but he was going to. I'll just need to check what's happening.
Yeah, okay, you can. Well, that's fine.
I think he's just joined.
Is he joined remotely?
Councillor Nelson.
He's not showing up on the
I
screen.
do see him online. And come back. Councillor Quinn.
Present remotely.
Councillor Robertson.
Present remotely till I leave.
Are there any declarations of interest?
This is an National Document Officer. Should come through that.
Okay, we'll go with a couple of minutes to come back and see what's happened to us.
Oh.
Oh, jeez.
Hi, Alice.
Sorry, couldn't get that to connect it.
Okay. Okay, we've got in this now, so we can make a start. So, item number 2 on the agenda is UK Government Shared Prosperity Fund and inward rights proposals. Jennifer, are you going to be taking us through the paper?
Thank you, Convener. So Shared Prosperity is a government fund through a UK government fund through which Inverclyde Council has allocated a core fund of 2948498 and multiply £615,463. The fund is for 3 years between 22 and 2025, and this fund is a successor to EU structural funds. However, it should be noted that it does not equate to the same amount that would have come to the Inverclyde area through EU funds. The Council is working with Glasgow City Region, who's a lead authority for the 8-member authorities of the region, and we've worked together to create an investment plan which was submitted to UK Government in August 22 and then approved in December 22. Due to delay in the approval of the investment plan, the UK Government have said that 22-23 funds can be accrued into years 2. However, the region must submit a credible plan of how this spend will be achieved. In 2022, the Regeneration Service did internal and external workshops to promote shared prosperity and did a call for projects. From that point, we created a long list of projects and then further considered them as a team. From the long list of projects, project leads were asked to provide more detailed information and submit more detail on how spend would be achieved. As with any funding, the requirements of the UK Government, there are requirements set out by the UK Government, and the number of projects did not meet the criteria or were not considered value for money. In addition, there was more projects than could be supported with the funds available. The report before you sets out the proposals for the allocation of the Shared Prosperity Core and Multiply money, and the projects are a mix of internal and external projects and a mix of grants to external organisations. As members will recall, there was a report to committee in August 2022, which set out notional allocations of funding across the investment priorities of communities in place, local business and people and skills, which are broadly similar to where things stand today. Due to the delay in the approval of the investment plan, further work has been done to review and refine projects to ensure that they're still deliverable and to align to the changes in local need, in particular aligning to the emerging findings of the Inverclyde Task Force, working with the City Region, the UK Government and the Scottish Government. Activities will be reviewed regularly with regards to progress and with regards to the requirements of the task force. You will recognise that a large number of projects will be managed internally by the Council and specifically by the Regeneration Service. The majority of the projects, however, will go through a procurement exercise, either to be delivered wholly or partially by the procured services. As well as working with project leads, the Regeneration Service has been working with the Glasgow City Region and other member authorities to set out monitoring, reporting and assurance frameworks. And the Glasgow City Region is progressing with assurance frameworks to Cabinet in May. Alongside the assurance framework, the Glasgow City Region will progress with the credible plan required by the UK Government. And the projects before you and their spend profile, if approved today, will be Inverclyde Council's credible plan. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks very much, Jennifer. Okay, any questions for Jennifer? Questions or comments?
I've got a few comments, thanks, Camilla. The initial thing that I had kind of discussed was that a lot of the money did seem to land with us, and it's good to know that a lot of it will be procured out and will go out to other organisations. My first question is, where are we with that? Where are we with that infrastructure procurement? What are the next steps in terms of money landing with us and then going out doing things in the wider community? That's my first question. I've got another couple.
Okay, Dave, you want to take that first?
Yep. At the moment, we've not received, or we've still to sign the agreement from Glasgow City Region, so we don't actually have the funding from the region as yet. But we are working in the background, preparing the procurement briefs so that they can go out as quickly as possible if we are to be approved today.
Okay. Can I go on with my questions?
Yeah.
All right, thanks. General questions would be, there's a lot of individual projects, and are we spreading the funding too thinly? Could we be more ambitious with what we're doing about the funding that's come in? Is it just workery things, or could we be a bit more ambitious with it? Is kind of some general comments about what is a significant injection of funding to the area? And the final comment is really about, it's based on paragraph 3.5 and what Jennifer's already said to us about a lot more having come in than what we're actually looking at today in terms of what we're planning to fund. And just wondering if we could get sight of the detail of what did come in terms of other things that we've not been able to allocate funding towards, to find out the sort of types of things that came in that we can't do, what didn't maybe meet criteria or whatever. I'm not sure if we can get that kind of detail, or even just by organisation type, project type, that kind of thing.
Okay. Stuart, do you want to come in the lack of ambition?
So you can get as Jennifer alluded to in our introduction, Councillor Rocks, and this is a blank piece of paper. So there's a series of outcomes which we're working towards, both in terms of what the UK government's aspirations are as well as the city region's aspirations. So I don't believe that we are spreading the allocation too thin, recognising that this is a £3.5 million allocation in total, which £2.9 million is for, and that's spread over 3 years. So whilst it is an investment, it's not a significant investment, and recognising that, looking at some of the projects, some of them do have some scale, and as a result of that, we believe that it's the right mix of projects which have been presented to members today. And with regards to the request about who applied and how much for, yes, we'll happily share that with members.
Brilliant, thanks.
Okay, Ben?
Yeah, thanks very much, Camilla. Yeah, reading the report, the challenge that first came to me was the aspiration of the council and how much we've actually put our shoulder to the wheel here. And obviously, I'm happy to take comment from officers about why we are where we are, as opposed to larger aspirational issues. And one of the things that came to mind that has been discussed, I believe, in the task group is research and development. Could this not have been core funding to turn Inverclyde into a key place for research and development? But we're not talking about a few, £3 million. We're talking about hundreds of millions of pounds that's out there for R&D development. So maybe disappointing that we're not seeing that, but maybe officers have got a reason for why we're not. But Kevin, if I may, can I just pick up one or two things that actually crosses over with the reality of where ENR has been over the last year and some of the suggestions that are in front of us this afternoon. The Pro-Glasgow shipbuilding environment, that whole space, it's a good positive, I think. We've had a good reaction, but we have challenges. We have TROs going through the process. I don't know where we are. Maybe legal can tell us to stop people parking in Coronation Park. And if that goes ahead and if the TRO is successful, then that's a positive. But there's other challenges that we haven't even looked at, like the parking within the Coronation Park. How do we control parking within Coronation Park? We can think of, obviously, the valued employer we have right on the edge of Coronation Park, Ferguson Marine. So, of course, their employees have to park somewhere. So it is a conversation to ensure that we actually make a difference, because it's one thing to have aspiration, as is laid out here, for the Coronation Park and the shipbuilders' environmental projects. But the reality is, there's been a few things on the agenda for a long time, and do we really see progress? Business working network was also brought up, so I'm not convinced I know enough about it to give comments. We're happy for officers to suggest. But we have Chamber of Commerce, we have the Federation of Small Businesses, and we're going to have another business networking. Are we duplicating? Are we taking welcomed taxpayers' money? But we are taking taxpayers' money and we're going to spend it on duplicating issues. So that was 2 out of 3, and my third, if I was right, is the challenge that we have. Sorry, I've got 4. The challenge that what I don't see is modern apprenticeships. I know that Stuart and his team have talked often about how good we are with modern apprenticeships as a council, but this would be a fantastic opportunity, unless you tell me otherwise, to lever in even more money to support modern apprenticeships throughout Inverclyde. And finally, Convener, may I say my 4th point is, I don't sit in education and communities. I know Convener is here, but the whole idea of maths, numeracy, the challenges of bringing adults forward in maths and numeracy on maths in this context, is that really a failure of our education department? Because I'm not talking about today's education, because obviously that's long term, these are adults. So we're spending more money than any other council, more money than the Scottish average on our young people, and we can see, well, what can we see for that money? And yet, our first opportunity when we see something in black and white is we're looking for more money to shovel in to more education. I do understand this for adult education. So there's a question in my mind there, is this is to be welcomed, but do we have problems going backwards? Thanks, Convener.
Okay, so the Coronation Park, parking, business networking, duplication, modern apprenticeships, and maths and numeracy. Stuart, you're Jennifer.
I'll take it to you, Chair. Councillor Brooks, the shipbuilders environment has been identified as an area where we can enhance the visitor experience. So it's not spending more money on shipbuilders statues as been suggested by some. It's enhancing the environment around about the shipbuilders statues. The UK Shared Prosperity Fund is not panacea to all ills. So when we look at the existing issues that we have with respect to car parking, UK Shared Prosperity Fund is not addressing that, and that's something which my colleagues and boards are taking forward in terms of addressing the concerns about access to the car parks as well as the park itself. With regards to the business network, that was a specific request from the Socio-Economic Task Force. We're looking at clusters, enhance people working together, learning from each other. So don't see it as competition or duplication with the Chamber of Commerce or the Federation of Small Businesses, but complementing it, building upon it, looking to develop strong sectors within Inverclyde in order that people can feed off of each other. With regards to the multiply allocation, the multiply allocation has come from the UK government at £600,000 against a specific intervention that's ring-fenced. We can't take any money from that allocation. Your notice from the paper identifies £2.9 million worth of funding against SCORE and £600,000 against multiply. We did ask to see if there was any flexibility in those allocations, and we were told no. There was a full allocation of £600,000 against numeracy skills within Inverclyde, and what we've attempted to do is come up with a series of different interventions. It's not being critical of our education system, but it's trying to build on what is already out there. Not everyone's a high achiever, but what we've got is a series of programmes whereby people hopefully supported in their numeracy skills across the 3-year period. Sorry, 3-year period.
Kivia.
Yeah.
So thanks very much. Thanks to Stuart. But I guess, okay, so what you've said here obviously clearly shows a direction of travel that is not to be negative, but it is a positive direction of travel. But I just wonder, is there things that we, as an Environment Regeneration Committee, I know they've got one item agenda here, 2 items now, but there's things that we should have been doing to move these things forward that we seem to not have been doing. I just wonder, where are we in the TRO on the access? Maybe not an issue for this committee, so I obviously have to have the cooperation of the convener. But it seems to be we're looking for more money to do some things that we're already doing. It's all part of the same story of making sure that we actually make a difference in Coronation Park and in other areas. And I fully accept the maths numeracy. Even our Prime Minister's made an announcement today on the importance of maths. So I'm not against it. It was a question of, is it the right thing to go forward with? And you've told me the figures from the UK government means that we have to use that there. So I accept that. But I just wonder, is there any things that we should have been doing in advance of this to make sure we have the best buck for the taxpayers' pounds?
Sure.
You can be. I'll defer to my colleagues and they refer to the information in respect to the TRO, but I'm not aware of anything to the council books. What you mentioned in your earlier points about modern apprentices, and the councils at some of the highest levels it's ever had for modern apprentices, between modern apprentices, wage subsidies and graduate programmes. And what the Shared Prosperity Fund could not do is duplicate what we're already doing. It's meant to complement what we're already doing, and hopefully with the gamut of different interventions that are presented to you today, you can see that we're trying to not duplicate but enhance what we've already got.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay. And can we find out, Stuart, about the TRO for the event?
Good. It's 3 years, so it's not one that I can do it, but I follow.
Okay, James.
Thanks, convener. Just a comment. I can empathise with officers here on this. They've had to satisfy the UK government's criteria and also put the funds across a variety of interventions. So I welcome it, and I think even though it may be lower than the previous European structural funding, it's still £3.5 million for Inverclyde, and I think officers have to be congratulated on what they've done here.
Thanks, James. I know you're standing in for Chris today, James. I'm expecting maybe 14 or 15 questions. Bye, James. Tim.
Yeah, thanks. Of course, James, it's actually less
than what we'd have got through the European Structural Fund. For me, the pillar of the European Union in this area was the European Social Fund and the European Structural Fund. I'm aware as European Social Fund changed its criteria and our area got less and less, but still in all, it's a substantial amount of money that this area got, both through European Structural Funds and European Social Funds over the year. This is really I know it's meant to be a Brexit dividend, but I think, as our officer says, it's a very small amount of money over a few years for the so-called Brexit dividend, which is virtually nil compared to what we did get out of Brexit. And that's probably where my comment is to say, for elected members, is there any work that's been done about what we did get from the European Union over the last 5-10 years that we're not going to get now? So obviously we've got the Levelling Up Fund, which again, all these are welcomed, and I wouldn't be disparaging of not welcoming them. But we've got this, and it always seems to be either from the UK government or the Scottish government, always seems to be funds that are ring-fenced and usually time constraints on it, rather than a long-term ability for a council to plan for the future. And that's probably the same as this. It's short-term funding, virtually to paper over the cracks, that we would have got for European structural money and previously for European Social Fund money. So it's just to see if any analysis has been done about what we as an area have lost out on in these two substantial European pots of money.
Sure.
You convener, my recollection is presented a report from Environment Regeneration some time ago, which highlighted the amount of money that we've received over a number of years from the European Social Fund and the ERDF, as it was used to be called. So from that perspective, that information is available to me, Councillor, but then I'll have to look at it.
Thank you, Stuart.
Yep. Stephen?
I think Jennifer wants to come in first, convener.
Got it. There you come, Jennifer.
Thank you, convener. I was just going to say as well, there's two projects within the project list. One in the local business and one in people and skills, where we've tried to, as much as possible, kind of replicate some of what we did do for under ERDF and ESF. So the Support and Growth and New Start Growth was grants to try and support businesses who are looking or show growth potential, where we used to have a grant through EU funding. It is less, but there's something there. And the same within people and skills, one that progress employment, where we are trying to have a project in there that kind of not quite replicates but supports some of the funds that support some of the activity from the funds that we've lost.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer. Stephen?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I mean, I think a lot of salient points have already been made, and I think Jim's right to highlight the ring fencing that goes on between the UK and the Scottish governments. And if we were getting £3.6 million and we were given complete autonomy over how we spent that money, we might not be spending the £3.6 million in this way. There might be other priorities as a council and as a community that we have. But we've got to work within, I suppose, the system as it stands and within the parameters of the funding initiative. So I'm sure there's a lot of worthwhile projects here that will make a difference. But the key is to make sure that it is making a difference. The key is to make sure that we're properly assessing these projects, getting regular reports on the progress that's been made and the outcomes have been achieved. And I suppose if we find that projects are not working, then we should have the flexibility to potentially redirect funding into projects that are working. Obviously, there's a fair amount of administration involved in this as well, and that's where the concern is. I suppose overall the different funding streams that you've got, a lot of your time is spent in sort of administration and management rather than necessarily delivering when you have all these different funding schemes. So I don't want to look at a gift horse mouth, but I think it is important that we try and get the best value out of these particular initiatives. And I saw some of the coverage on in the Telegraph and on its Facebook page was around the sculpture and the environmental improvements that Coronation Park, and Graham's taking us off at that particular tangent as well, and the challenges that Councillor Wilson has around parking in Coronation Park. But the key thing here is to make a difference to the lives of people in Inverclyde. It's about getting those who are far from the labour market into jobs and work to improve their quality of life and their standard of living, and to support our local businesses to grow and develop, and our social enterprises to grow and develop again, to help people in our community improve their lives. So the key is to address that challenge. And I recognise the point that Graham's made around maths. And yeah, we could argue that the education system has failed a lot of people, not just here in Inverclyde, I have to say, but all across the country. And we know maths is a particular challenging subject. It's clearly a priority for the Prime Minister. So I think, again, we need to use these initiatives to ensure that the people who are being supported get the skills they need, both to get into employment and to live their everyday lives as well. So I think it is important we're getting regular reports on progress, and I think it's important that we're assessing the performance of these particular projects and ensuring we are getting value for money from them.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Colin?
Thanks, Stuart. I'm really trying to tie us in with the task force and the report we got from the Fraser Allowance Institute, and look at the reality of the local economy. We talk a lot in these papers about the skill gap in Inverclyde and how it puts us back, but I don't think I've ever read anywhere that tells us what these gaps are. I mean, you look at the local economy, is this paper really going to try and, is there anything in this going to try and close that skills gap? Do you think that money is spent wisely? When you look at the Fraser Allowance Institute report, when you look at this, you look at the reality of our economy, call centres, fast food shops, what is the skills gap? Is this going to help close up?
Stuart, what comment on
So you convener, the City Hall provides us with a comprehensive report to the task force in terms of the skills gap council. It identified a number of areas which we need to look at. And if you look, whilst the skills gap is a skills gap which is large and comprehensive, and you recognise that on an annual basis we are spending well over £2 million in terms of our employability programmes. And that is partly to try and address the skills gap that's bringing people towards the workforce. There are a number of programmes within the papers which before you, for example, Steps to Progression is an area whereby that's £350,000, trying to address the skills gap, but recognising that it's not just the skills gap, it's about upskilling. So it's about ensuring that people who are not in the workplace get towards the workplace or indeed in the workplace. And it's also trying to upskill those who are in the workplace up the way to better value jobs, because as we know, Inverclyde lags behind the West of Scotland in terms of its weekly wage. So I think that there are elements within the programme which are addressing the skills gap. It's not going to fix the skills gap, Mr. Jackson. It's going to try and help address the skills gap, but also recognising that there are a number of indicators that this money is to be used for. And what it's doing is it's use Councillor Robertson's analogy about spreading the jam thin. It's spreading the jam across a number of indicators which will hopefully provide a balance for them.
John?
Thank you, convener. Basically, my attention was really focused on the fact that the UK Shared Prosperity Fund was shared across all areas of the UK, and had it been simply based on the Scottish Index of Multiple Deprivation, and as we know, Greenock Town Centre and East Central is #1 in the whole of the Scotland, and Inverclyde, unfortunately, is also at the wrong end of the table. Is it not the case that such areas of multiple deprivation are really subsidising other areas? And if there had been a level playing field between the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and the European Structural and Investment Fund Growth Programme, which was funding the projects that would create jobs and support local growth, that we may have had an enhanced settlement. Irrespective of that, I still welcome the £3.6 million that will be coming to Inverclyde. And I note that the officers from the Regeneration Service had worked extensively with their colleagues across the metropolitan Glasgow City region to develop these proposals. That was also in compliance with the paper that was presented to the Environment and Regeneration Committee meeting on the 16th of June in 2022. Also, I understand it's in full compliance with the thematic priorities that were addressed at the UK Shared Prosperity Fund Investment Plan paper that was presented to the Glasgow City Region Cabinet paper in the 30th of August 2022. Therefore, at the end of the day, really, I do welcome this money, although I think had it been based on the European funds that we would have been better off. I also note there that Inverclyde Council will be allocated 4% of the Shared Prosperity Fund for management costs for monitoring and evaluating these projects. I welcome that. It will produce a small number of jobs locally. And furthermore, I also welcome that there will be reports and updates will be presented back to Council. The only real question that I really have is that should we not really have been focusing more on the likes of our school leavers, getting them back into employment locally, working along with the local Chamber of Commerce? After all, at the end of the day, our school leavers and young people are our most valuable of assets, and we should be focusing on them. I think this paper really does that. It could have been enhanced so that we were looking after our young people. Also, we know that there is many people have been made unemployed. Should we also be looking at trying to reskill them and get them into jobs locally? So the focus, I would say, is that we should be looking at employment and training. The only thing I'd really like to see is there any scope for alignment between the various projects? Should there be instances of underspending on one project and overspending others? Thank you.
Thanks, John. Pretty well to go through this. School leavers and reskilling. Hope it's been made redundant.
To you, Convener, there's a number of interventions with regards to employment, and that includes more choices, more chances, which are within the papers, and I'm conscious that the amount of detail that we can put on the papers is relatively limited compared to the totals of information that we can provide you as for detail within the projects. Where we're at is that we've got a balance of interventions. So there's 4 interventions, and I mean Inverclyde Council core interventions, which looks to address young people. There's interventions within the suite of packages that provides that. And as I've said before, I believe that there's a balance before members for consideration. You talk about monitoring. Yes, there will be lots of monitoring. A number of members mentioned monitoring. It's safe to say that Jennifer knows that this project will be monitored to death, whether it be from the Glasgow City region for monitoring or even the UK government for monitoring. There will be extensive monitoring required for the projects.
What about John's comment, same as Stephen was mentioning, the funding stream, can that be moved from one project to another?
I think to say at this moment, I think it's highly unlikely. Jennifer has been advised that the opportunity to move funding from 1 year to the next within the project is going to be likely to be limited. And indeed, when we first engaged with the UK government, it was if you don't spend it in a year, then what would be able to go on. That's obviously changed through time, whereby the UK government have relaxed that position. That may be because they were late in making their award to the council. So it's one of these situations, kind of like how we'll have to suck it and see. If there is opportunity, we will use it. But I think at this stage, the amount of flexibility that we'll have within the process may be quite limited.
Okay, that's fine, thank you.
Okay. One.
Yeah, great, thank you. Yeah, just a quick question. So, yeah, thanks for the report. It's really good to see some of those projects in there. Obviously, recognise some of the things that have been mentioned in the past, so it's good to see those things appearing in here. And thanks to all the officers, because I can understand how much work and effort is going in there to try and tie these things in with the criteria of the funding. So, thanks for that. I've just got a question on the sort of funding and the timing. Obviously, it's mentioned that we've now got a kind of 3-year set of projects that have now to be done under 2 years. So I'm really just trying to seek some reassurance. Obviously, a number of them are external now, they'll need to be procured. So it's just a reassurance that that procurement process, you know, we've experienced in the past, sometimes that can take some time, that the procurement service is kind of set up to get these in and, you know, and procured pretty quickly, because now we've got a kind of year less to deliver some of them. Thanks.
Okay, Jennifer.
Thank you. Yeah, so as I said, we're underway with some of the projects and some of the interventions, and we will, where possible, make use of existing contracts that we have if it can be done through direct award. On the whole, yeah, the tender process has to get underway very quickly, with briefs being written at the moment, and getting things out as soon as possible. The project leads are all aware of the timescales, and that was part of the refinement process of going back through the projects and making sure that they consider them to be deliverable within the timescales.
Okay, on.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Okay, anyone else? No? Can we agree with the recommendations?
Great.
Right. Jennifer, before I move on, can I just thank you for the work in compiling this report? I know how much work was involved in this, so pulling it together is no mean feat. So on behalf of the committee, I'd just like to thank you for all the work you've done. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, item number 3 is the additional report that's we've agreed to take, which is the Clyde Climate Forest Concordat. Stuart.
We have to apologise for the lateness of this paper. Again, to you today allows our position to be recognised amongst the city region. We're keen to progress matters quickly. The Clyde Climate Forest Concordat acknowledges the role that trees, woodlands and forests play in helping our climate challenges. It focuses on canopy, connectivity and carbon, and is framed by the 4 actions highlighted in paragraph 3.5 of your papers. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, any questions for Stuart? No, don't see any in the chat. Oh, sorry, Stephen.
Yeah, I suppose it's just to get an understanding of where we are in terms of our contribution to the overall plan for the Clyde Climate Forest. So obviously a huge number of trees to be planted across the city region, and a number of proportion of them will be in Inverclyde. Where are we, and I suppose, in terms of delivering Inverclyde's contribution, and is there an individual plan for that contribution, and can we get an understanding of what the plan is and what sort of timescale?
So,
you can members will recall that we presented the Edinburgh process to the committee not long ago, and that was about attracting external funding, Councillor McCabe. My understanding is that there were approximately 25,000 trees planted in Inverclyde last year, but I'll have to check that for accuracy. And what we're doing is we're working with colleagues with a view to developing funding bids in order that we can maximise the external funding that's available for us for trees and greening of areas, recognising the challenges that we face within town services about cutting high amenity areas. We're looking at nature, wild meadows, we're looking at forestation, we're looking at gathering seeds, we're doing the whole thing with a view to trying to promote an ecologically friendly way of promoting trees within Inverclyde, recognising that in the urban setting there's competition between people wanting to plant trees and people wanting to cut trees down because of their impact on their houses. So it's striking a balance between what's the art of the possible and what's not. But we're developing, to answer your question, we're developing our plans with a view to how we can contribute to that forestation.
That's helpful. I think it would be useful to get a report to committee at some point in time. Can I raise one other issue? It's probably tangential, very much to item 2, but we're aware of the recent sort of proposals from ScotRail to reduce the number of fast trains operating on the Gourock line, which potentially would have an economic impact here. I was just asked the director if his service, the council regeneration service, would be looking to make any representations around that particular issue.
Stretch.
Okay, I suppose you can go off at a tangent, so sure.
I'm not going off the tracks, convener, but yes, we will be making representations, Councillor McCabe.
That's helpful, thank you.
Okay. Okay, anyone else?
Yeah.
Sorry, Ennis.
Can I just come back to the forestation? Are there opportunities to plant useful trees? And when I say useful trees, I mean like fruit-bearing trees, especially within the urban area, where people would be able to make use of apples and different things that may be provided on common ground or council ground.
Yep.
Yes. I mean, simply from a food production, food growing, absolutely. And it's something that it's not all about deciduous trees. Obviously, recognising that evergreen trees tend to have a relatively short shelf life, deciduous trees have a longer shelf life. But the opportunity for this to address climate change and make people grow their own is absolutely foremost in terms of considerations for this.
Yeah, and also those trees tend to be smaller, so that they won't impact as much in housing. Right.
Good point. John, you might come up, sorry.
Yeah, if I could just try and get this on you, that's lovely. It's really just to note that within Inverclyde there's a myriad of different landowners. So I'd assume that you'll be working in conjunction with major landowners, other than just Inverclyde Council itself. And will that come under, when you'd mentioned earlier on to your response to Councillor McCabe, that you will be developing plans?
Sure.
Through you, convener, yes, in simple terms.
That's right.
When you look at the land that's available within Inverclyde Council's got a relatively small amount. We also need to recognise that much of the open space that we have is peat, and we don't want to plant trees on top of our peat because then that just defeats the purpose of our peatland restoration. So yes, we will be engaging with other landowners with regards to how they can support the process.
That's me, thank you.
Elizabeth.
Thank you. Thank you. Last. I'm going to blame Councillor McCabe here for opening the floodgates. You thought you were going to get away without any questions, and now you've had loads. The question that I've got is actually born out of conversations we've had with Nature Scott, who obviously are promoting all the green initiatives that are under the sun, rightly so. And one of the things that's been said in conversation with colleagues at Nature Scott is that what we need to develop in Scotland as part of the infrastructure is nursery space. If people want to plant trees, they're not planting them as seeds, they're planting them as saplings, and there needs to be space for growing nurseries of little baby trees. And I'm just wondering if on a regional basis, this is something that we're now involved in terms of the climate forest. There'll be other regions beyond our own that are also involved in and tree planting on a reasonably heavy scale. I'm just wondering if there are employment, financial growth opportunities, pardon the pun, for us to be part of the solution of nursery provision for our own region and potentially further afield.
So,
For you, convener, there's opportunities for us to look at this regional. But we've already started the process local. So the rangers within the Clyde Blue Shield Regional Park have been gathering seeds over the last 18 months. What our idea is that we use some of the open space within our schools for our nurseries, for our trees, so that we're then engaging the young people in forest products and growing saplings, recognising that young trees will establish far better than mature trees. So we saw there would be an opportunity to use the schools with a view to encouraging young people, as well as saving mileage by not importing trees from out with the UK. The opportunity for green jobs is front and centre for us. So we're looking at this as an opportunity both from a tree planting perspective, but also we're looking to run an employability programme for nature restoration stuff. We're peatland restoration. We're trying to develop opportunities there for people to be involved in a training programme in order that they can participate in green jobs in the future.
okay. Okay, thanks very much, everybody. Okay, can we agree recommendations for item 3? Yeah, okay, thanks very much. See you later.